Beginning stranded and alone. I never expected to be homeless on an alien world. My name is Rylankar, a human explorer and former cargo pilot who had spent the last decade hopping between star systems, delivering supplies, salvaging wrecks, and occasionally running from debt collectors. My luck ran out on Virilia, a distant planet at the edge of the Orinthian sector, known for its floating cities, crystalline forests, and unpredictable weather patterns. My ship, the Eclipse Runner, had suffered a catastrophic engine failure during a routine delivery. I crash-landed in a valley far from civilization. The landing was rough. I lost most of my supplies. My comm system was fried, and my credit chips were destroyed in the wreck. For the first time in years, I was truly alone, stranded on an alien world where I couldn't speak the language, barely understood the customs, and had nothing to my name. The first night, I huddled beneath jagged cliffs, shivering as luminescent storms swept across the valley. Strange creatures called to one another in the distance, their cries like music and danger intertwined. Hunger gnawed at me, and every sound made me jump. I had survived countless near-death experiences in the void of space, but being utterly powerless on an alien planet was terrifying in a way no asteroid field or pirate ambush could match. I wandered for days, scavenging whatever I could find. Civilization was elusive. Virilia's cities floated high in the sky, held aloft by gravitic technology beyond my comprehension. And below, the surface was wild, dangerous, and inhospitable to a human. Then I met her. Middle, the princess appears. I had stumbled into a hidden grove in the crystalline forest, exhausted, dehydrated, and close to collapse. The air shimmered with a strange energy, and the soft hum of gravitic engines vibrated beneath the ground. I sensed someone approaching long before I saw her. She emerged from the mist. Princess Lyriel, heir to the Virilian throne. She was tall, ethereal, her skin glowing faintly under the luminescent foliage. Her hair flowed like liquid silver, and her eyes were deep amethyst, intelligent, and infinitely patient. "You're far from safety," she said, her voice melodic, like the chimes of a distant cathedral. I blinked, unsure whether to bow, flee, or collapse entirely. I have no shelter, no food, no nothing. She studied me for a long moment, her gaze piercing yet calm. "You will stay with me tonight." I froze. "Excuse me?" She smiled faintly, as if my shock amused her. "Stay in my room tonight. You are homeless, stranded, and vulnerable. I will not allow that. Follow me." I wanted to protest, but I was too weak, too hungry, too exhausted to resist. Reluctantly, I followed her through the forest. She moved with grace, almost floating over the ground, while I stumbled behind, barely able to keep up. When we arrived at the floating palace, I could barely comprehend the sight. Towers of crystal, pathways that defied gravity, gardens suspended in the sky. The world was breathtaking, almost impossible for a human to navigate. Lyriel led me to her private chambers. "You will rest here tonight. Tomorrow, we will discuss your situation." I wanted to ask why she cared, why the princess of an alien world would offer sanctuary to a human stranger. But her presence left me speechless. The night of revelation. That night, I lay on the soft cushions of her room, staring at a ceiling that reflected the constellations of Virilia's sky. I was human, lost in an alien world, yet here I was, under the care of a princess who should have had no reason to concern herself with me. Lyriel sat across from me, her gaze steady. "You are fortunate," she said softly. "Most humans in your situation do not survive long." I don't even know how to repay this," I admitted, voice hoarse from dehydration and fatigue. She leaned forward, her hands resting lightly on the crystalline table between us. "There is no repayment necessary. You are alive. That is enough." Her words, simple yet profound, struck a chord deep within me. I realized that in a world so alien, kindness could be more powerful than technology, more powerful than armies, more powerful than the stars themselves. Over the next few hours, we spoke. She told me about Virilia, the floating cities, the delicate balance between nature and technology, and the expectations she carried as the future ruler. I told her about my life, my failures, my journey across star systems, and my hopelessness the past week. She listened, truly listened, and in that listening, I found something I hadn't felt in years: acceptance. At one point, she whispered, "You do not belong to this world, yet perhaps you belong somewhere still." I didn't understand then what she meant, but I sensed the weight in her words. There was a promise there, of protection, guidance, and something more I couldn't yet name. The following days, learning, trust, and danger. Over the next week, I was introduced to life in the palace, though I was still technically a guest, not a member of her court. Lyriel taught me about her people, their customs, and the precarious politics of Virilia. She was patient, graceful, and insistent that I learn, not just to survive, but to thrive. Yet danger lurked even in paradise. Rival nobles sought to undermine her authority, and not everyone approved of a human wandering freely in the palace. I had to learn quickly. The floating palace was as treacherous as the forest below, filled with intrigue and hidden threats. Lyriel guided me, always present, always watchful. One evening, as we observed the glowing city below, she said quietly, "Humans are unpredictable. That is why you fascinate me. That is why I allowed you to stay in my room that night. I sensed you would endure." I looked at her, awestruck. "I don't deserve this. I don't even know how to explain it." "You do not need to explain," she replied. "You need only be here and survive." Her words, again, struck a chord. It was not protection for obligation, not charity for appearances. It was recognition of my worth, simply because I existed. The bond deepens. Weeks turned into months. I adapted to life on Virilia, learning its dangers, navigating its skies, and slowly earning the trust of palace officials. Lyriel remained a constant presence, sometimes mentor, sometimes ally, sometimes the quiet observer of my progress. One night, as we walked along the sky terraces, she touched my arm lightly. "You've come far," she said, almost in a whisper. "Not as a servant, not as a guest, but as someone who belongs here." I swallowed hard. I never thought I would belong anywhere again. Not after being lost in that valley alone. "You were never truly alone," she said softly. "I saw you, and seeing you was enough for me to care." That night, as I lay in my own quarters, though now officially part of the palace life, I realized that what began as survival had transformed into connection. She was no longer just the princess who had offered me shelter. She was the reason I had a home, the reason I had purpose, the reason I had hope. Ending, a home found, a future together. The day came when I was formally introduced to the council as a human resident of the palace, someone trusted and valued. I had survived the forests, the floating cities, and the intrigues of court life. And I had done it alongside Lyriel. One evening, she called me to her private chambers once more. The doors closed behind me, and she looked at me with a softness I had never seen before. "Rylan," she whispered, stepping closer, "you are no longer homeless. Not on this world. Not anywhere. Stay with me. Stay in my room tonight, not because of charity, but because I want you to." I felt the weight of her words sink in. She wasn't commanding. She wasn't protecting out of duty. She was inviting, trusting, and expecting me as an equal. I will, I said, my voice shaking with emotion. That night, I slept not as a stranded human, not as a guest, not as a survivor, but as someone with a home, a protector, and a companion. Lyriel had not just saved my life. She had given me belonging, purpose, and a future I had never dared to imagine. The galaxy was vast, alien, and often dangerous. But I had found my anchor in the most unlikely place, the whispered invitation of an alien princess who saw me, believed in me, and refused to let me be lost. And as I lay beside her, listening to the hum of the floating palace, I realized that sometimes being homeless isn't the end. It's the beginning of something extraordinary.